Am I perfect? No. Am I incredibly more effective than I ever dreamed was possible? Yes. And I think that's what allowed me to grow, a seven-figure business as a solo entrepreneur without staff, was just having built systems.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou, and boy, do we have an exciting guest for you today. Today's guest is my brother from another mother. He is a man that I met when I got the privilege of speaking at the Transformational Leadership Council this past summer in Montebello, Quebec. He is a beautiful human being. He is a great man. He's got heart. He's got soul. He's got ridiculous thought leader chops. And he is an acolyte of transformation. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Bruce Muzik. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you. Wow. I don't know what to say to that. I'm flattered. I might be blushing.
Great to have you here. So, Bruce, we bonded over breakfast and conversation in Quebec this past summer. And
we did.
Both realized that we really have a lot in common. We love transformation. We're a fan of the legendary Werner Erhard, the founder of Erhard Seminars Training. And we also have a passion for having men and women have great relationships.
Yep.
And I loved all of that about you. I loved how great a human being you were. And I wanted to bring you on here just to have a conversation with you and delve into some of this stuff. But I know you fairly well, but folks here don't. So why don't we start by having you tell us your backstory? How'd you get to be the great Bruce Muzik?
I don't think of myself like that, but I love that you call me the great Bruce Muzik. Hopefully one day on my tombstone, I'll be remembered for being great. So I'm South African originally, if any of you are wondering where my accent comes from. I was born and bred in South Africa. I live part-time in the Dominican Republic, part-time here in South Africa, where I am right now. And if you ask me what I'm doing with my life, I will tell you I help couples save their marriages and turn conflict around. If you ask me what I'm passionate about, I'll tell you I am passionate about educating. Education is my thing. Teaching is my thing. And it doesn't matter what I'm teaching. I'm an avid teacher and trainer and speaker. And that's what really lights me up. And my backstory in the world of transformation started when I was maybe 25 years old. And I found myself in a landmark education seminar called the Landmark Forum. And this was led by a black man by the name of Larry Pearson.
I know Larry.
And there were 300. You know Larry?
Oh wow. My God, he used to hang out. He's Toronto Center's first Landmark Forum leader. Larry's amazing.
Amazing. Larry's incredible. But you have to understand that as 300 white people sitting in a room taking education from a black man in post-apartheid South Africa was a big deal. And to be honest, I think all of us were a little nervous for him as we walked in the room. And this man won our hearts and changed our lives in 2.5 days. And by the end of it, all of us walked out of that room better versions of ourselves. And I remember sitting in that room thinking to myself, that is what I want to do with my life. I was a professional musician at the time and a music producer. And I had no idea how I was ever going to get on stage and transform people's lives. But you know, Nikki, how when you're on purpose, life has a way of giving you the path, or the path unfolds. This was one of those moments where it's like, I know this is for me. I'm willing to quit my music career that I've invested 10 years in and follow this path. This is what I want to do next. And long story short, I ended up meeting and working for Werner Erhard, the guy who founded Landmark Education, that seminar that I was in where I had my life changed. And I spent 2 years as his aide slash apprentice slash tech support guy, living with him in his home 5 days a week pretty much. And my wife also worked for him. And so we just had a whole 2 years of it was like boot camp. It was like being in the military of personal development. You couldn't get away with any of your crap. It would come to the surface and it would be laser focused on, and it would be transformed in a conversation or many conversations that was often not easy and very painful. But it was the greatest educational experience of my life. And for him, I will never have enough gratitude for that time I spent with him. And after that time, I got divorced, and a couple of years later, and I was reinventing myself, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I had no idea. I was having an early midlife crisis, and I ended up moving to the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean, because when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was live on a beach somewhere so that I could windsurf in front of my house. That was my childhood dream. So I thought, well, you know what? Seeing as I don't know what to do with my life, I'm just going to go to the Caribbean and see what happens. And that led to a series of relationships that failed. And out of those failed relationships, I had a passion ignited inside of me to try and figure out what I was doing. I had this moment where a light bulb went off in my head, and I realized that the common denominator in all of my failed relationships was me. I was always there when they went to hell. So I figured maybe I've got a thing or two to learn. And so, like I always do, being an avid educator and learner, I just dove deep into all the relationship research I could find. This is maybe 15 years ago now. And if you were at dinner with me, you were getting a training, whether you liked it or not, on how to have a great relationship. That's just how it went. And after a couple of years of this, my friends, were saying the same thing over and over, like, Bruce, you really seem passionate about this. Maybe you should consider this is what life is leading you towards doing. And so I got qualified several times to work with couples and started a company called Love at First Fight. And now, over the last decade and a half, we have helped over probably coming on 40,000 people right now transform their relationships or marriages. And it's something I'm so grateful for and love. So that's the short story.
Wow.
And I'm married, if anybody's wondering. I got remarried. I met my wife in the Dominican Republic, and that's why we live between the Dominican Republic and South Africa when we're not on the road.
There's a lot to unpack there, brother. So first off, Werner Erhard. Tell us the story. How did you meet this guy? Like, what brought you into his orbit?
I think it was truly fate. I mean, I can't make sense of it other than that, but I'll tell you the very short story. I was in my landmark advanced course, and I got challenged for being a racist. The forum leader, David Ure, stood up on stage and said to me, Bruce, how many black friends do you have? And I was going to him to have a conversation about why I was feeling depressed at the time. And I didn't know where he was going with this, but I lied to him. I remember distinctly lying to him because I was so embarrassed that I had none. And I was a white South African who was quite proud of being a liberal, and but yet I was a hypocrite because I had no black friends. So out of that conversation, he challenged me to go and live in a ghetto as the only white person and go and become friends with my fellow countrymen. And at first I turned him down. I went home that night and I was like, no way, you got to be crazy. I'm not doing that. That's too dangerous. Like, who knows what could happen? I could die, But I couldn't sleep that night. And so I went back to the course the next day with my tail between my legs, feeling shame. And halfway through that day, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do this thing. I'm going to commit, throw my hat over the wall and see what happens. And so I stood up on stage in front of 110 people and I said, I commit that by next week, I will be living in the ghetto, what we call a township here in South Africa. And somebody in the audience jumped up and said, I know where potentially you could live. Come talk to me afterwards. And one thing led to the other. And a month later, I was on the cover of our national newspaper because it was Freedom Day. And they used me as an example of the integration between white and black in South Africa. And it was one of the scariest things I'd ever done. I spent 6 months there as the only white man amongst 100,000 black people, maybe more. And I had many difficult experiences, from being accepted, from people thinking that I was police, that I'd come in undercover to bust them for dealing illegal drugs or alcohol or whatever it was, to begging, to people just every day, multiple times a day, trying to beg money off me. And initially I would give them a few cents here and a few cents there. But after a while, word spread that the new bank had just moved into town. And my door, there was a line outside my door of people just wanting money. And so that didn't work out. So in the end, I thought to myself, I can't not give them anything. And so I thought, let me educate these people. Being a teacher and a learner, I was like, I'm going to teach them how to become entrepreneurs. I had these big dreams of like helping people open fruit stands on the corner and stuff like that. But after having made this offer to 300 people or so over the course of the 6 months I was there, I said to them, I'm not going to give you any money, but if you want to learn how to make your own money, come to here on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I will teach you how to make your own money. Because I've always been an entrepreneur. Money's been something I know a little bit about. So after 6 months, how many people, Nikki, do you think actually took me up on my offer?
Fewer than 10.
One. You're close.
Whoa.
Yep,
Yeah.
One. His name was Patrick Monaketsi, and he went on to start a little computer repair business. And it got me very interested in the mind. And I started thinking, why is it that all these people are poor and I'm offering them a path for free education to teach them how to make their own money, and nobody's showing up? And I realized is that they didn't believe it was possible for them. Their mindset was, I am not the kind of person that has money. I am black, and black people don't drive cars. They live in shacks on the side of the road. And that was the mindset that I was dealing with. And it got me very interested in understanding mindset. Okay, that's the story that led me into Werner, and I'll tell you how. At the time when I was living in Guguletu, my
Spell it for
wife
me.
to be
Spell
at the time.
Guguletu. I got to write this down.
Yes. Guguletu, Guguletu. At the time I was living in Guguletu, my wife to be at the time, she moved to London and she wanted to go be in the city and further her career. She was assisting at Landmark and she got invited to go to an interview for a secret interview. They wouldn't tell her who the interview was. It was a high-powered man, and he was going to remain anonymous for at least the first 2 interviews, and if she made it to round 3 of the interviews, then she would find out who he was. Turns out she got the job, and it was working for Werner Erhard, the guy who created the forum and Est, and I almost died of envy. I was like, I can't believe you're working for my hero. And so I basically used her to get me access. I went to pick her up from work every day, and I knocked on his door every day for 3 months, and I said, please employ me. I'll work for free. I don't care anything to learn from you. And he was like, Bruce, I don't have a job for you. Like, I don't need any more staff. I've already got 15 people living in my house with me. Like, I don't need any more people. And he then realized after a couple of months that I wasn't going to go away. And so he said, well, what do you know about computers? I was like, some, but whatever I don't know, I'll learn. So I said, great, I need someone to manage my computer systems. I said, I want to become a Landmark Forum leader. And he said to me, okay, so I'll train you to become a Landmark Forum leader. And that's how I started my journey of being on the personal development path with Werner. And I spent 2 years of intense boot camp with him. And I remember saying to him, please will you give me the manual that the forum leaders used to lead this 3-day course that changes people's lives? I'm dying to read that thing. And he's like, the manual? Why do you want the manual? I was like, because I want to understand how it's done. He said, the manual doesn't do anything, my friend. He said, it all comes from inside here. You need to transform you. You are the manual. The manual just guides you on what section comes next in the course. But you are the person who's going to transform others, not a manual. You need to work on yourself and transform yourself first. And that's what I'm going to do here. And it was wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, 12 hours a day for 2 years. So that is how that came to happen. I learned so much, Nikki. I mean, the man changed my life in so many ways. And I think one of the things that really stands out was his absolute commitment to excellence. We would sit, he'd be writing a document or a procedure, and we would sometimes sit, the two of us, for 2 days, massaging a 50-word paragraph, like one paragraph in some manual that he's going to send off for some course that he was writing. And we'd go over these 50 words, trying to make them the most clear, the most impactful, the most, to use a word that I learned from him, unfuckwithable. So there's no way you could fuck it up. And that was another big lesson I learned from him, was this distinction, unfuckwithable. I remember him teaching this to me. He said, unfuckwithable isn't you can't fuck with me. like fuck off, you can't fuck with me. That's not what it is. Unfuckwithable is your integrity is so spotlessly clean that nobody's got anything on you, even if they tried. You can't be messed with because your integrity is so spotless. It was an amazing distinction and lesson. And the other day I was seeing how much his work had spread in the world, and I was at a Mind Valley conference in Amsterdam, and they were giving away free stickers. This is the back of my flip phone. I don't know if that's probably not going to say on the I found they gave away a sticker called Unfuckwithable, so I stuck it on my phone.
Nice.
So yeah, that's my story of how I came to Werner. I'll let you guide where we go next, because I could tell 100 stories and spend the whole conversation just talking about Werner, but I know you've got other places you want to go to.
No, we're going to stay here for a while. But Bruce, so about a month and a half ago, Raymond Erhard, who you know, reconnected me with someone that was present at the creation of Est and was Werner's right hand. Her name is Marcia Martin. I don't know if you've heard her name or know who she is.
I know Marcia.
She wrote a book called Sex, Power, and Transformation, which is about her journey into the world of the creation of the personal development movement. It reads like a bloody thriller novel, man. You should pick up a copy and check it out. It's wild. It's wild. And she...
I'm not sure how much of that is accurate in that book.
Well,
but anyway,
read the book. Read the book.
Okay.
Read the book before you say that. It's a great read. It's a fun read.
I'm sure.
There's people who think that all Marcia does in that book is trash Landmark and trash Werner, and that's not really true. It is an unvarnished look at that world. She talks about the good, the bad, the ugly, and she pulls no punches on any of it. But what she had to say about how Werner ended up creating Est and how he grew it from 29 people to 800,000 graduates in 6 years. 6 years. And then from that point grew it to millions and multi-millions. It's a fascinating story. I got to tell you.
He's a force of nature.
Yeah. And what I think Werner Erhard is responsible for more people stepping into their power, the best version of themselves than any human being in recent history.
Alive.
Yeah.
Or ever. Yeah.
Well,
agreed.
Jesus Christ might have something to say about that. So might Mohammed, so might Buddha, but maybe. But I got to say that Werner did a ton, and I'm glad you came on the show today, because I'm in a moderate funk myself. I've had a fantastic year. Up until about late October, everything was just swimming at a super great and super fast and awesome rate. And I'm not telling you things are going bad right now, but there have been a couple of God's learning opportunities that have come my way, and setbacks, and I'm just I'm in a mild funk around it all. I just went to an old high school buddy's wonderful place in Houston, Texas, to sit down and relax, and that was helpful. And I'm doing a few other things, but listening to you just talk about this has lifted my spirits, has lifted my vibration.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that.
Yeah. So I really appreciate it. So tell me, what was a day with Werner like?
Intense, and sometimes filled with anxiety for me, because I was a little kid from South Africa who thought he knew it all, and Werner very quickly showed me that I knew nothing. And so I was also quite arrogant, being 20, I think I was 28 at the time. And, I'd just been on the cover of our national newspaper, and I was kind of like this little mini celebrity for a little while in South Africa. And I think my head had grown a little big, and Werner shrunk it back to size very quickly by showing me where I had no discipline. I was so average in many areas, not excellent. I wouldn't be meticulous with things. I had no systems for keeping my promises and keeping my word. And so much of the stuff I learned was around how do I become a person who's unfuckwithable? How do I become a person who has the kind of integrity that gets things done, and that becomes who I am rather than just something I have to remember all the time? Because I was this, windsurfing, kind of dirt biking, half hippie music producer guy with hair down to here at the time. And it was like going to the military. So he taught me great habits. Like one of the best habits I remember is completion. And so he does a lot of work around this idea that most of our stress in life comes from all of the incompletions in our life. So if you're lying in bed at night stressing out about stuff, it's mostly because you've made promises or you have commitments that are incomplete. And some of them have fallen by the wayside, and all of this weighs on our shoulders. And so he came up with a beautifully effective and simple way of managing a world in which you will never, ever, 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 ever get it all done. You will die and you will have a to-do list longer than you can get done in 10 lifetimes. That's just the nature of being human in today's world. Mm-hmm. And so he had us create these beautiful distinctions. Well, he taught us these beautiful distinctions around the 3 states of completion. And I'll just share them with you quickly because they're so inspiring to me. The first one is fully complete. Things done, and it's finished, it's in the past, and I don't have to worry about it again. So, for example, leading a workshop that I'd committed to leading last year, that thing's fully complete now, it's done, it's wrapped up, I'm never going to think about it again, it's gone. That's where we want to be. But most of the things in life are going to be in some other state of completion. And so the next completion he defines is what he calls provisionally complete. And so when something is provisionally complete, that is defined as everything that can be done now has been done, and anything that cannot be done right now and it's going to be done in the future is scheduled in your calendar to be done at a specific date, at a specific time in the future. And if it's not at a specific date or a specific time, it's not going to get done because to-do lists don't count. And his idea was that to-do lists are a prayer. It's, I hope I get this done someday. And if you're going to do anything, you don't use your calendar as a to-do list. If you put something in at 10 a.m., it happens at 10 a.m. because you say so, not because you're bound by your calendar and you're trapped by it, but because you're creating your life and your calendar is the master plan for how you're creating your life. And so when you schedule, for example, let's say my car needs a service, 15 kilometers, and that's on every year. So you take my car in to get serviced and check if I've reached the 15,000 kilometer mark. And if not, move the appointment into the future another month or 2, or book the appointment with the mechanic and go get it done. That is provisionally complete for me right now. So I don't have to worry about my car's maintenance anymore. It's taken care of in my calendar forever. So is getting my accounting done. So is filing my tax returns. So is everything that is a recurring thing is scheduled, provisionally complete in my calendar with procedures for what to do when I get there. So I can sleep well at night knowing that I don't have to worry, that my life is mapped out, not and that would have previously made me feel very trapped because I'm quite spontaneous and I hate having too many things planned out. But the beauty about his system was you get to run it the way you want to run it. But the only way it works well is if you have integrity with yourself. And that's the most important part, is getting yourself to do what you said you would do at the date, on the time you said you would do it. That I struggle with and still do. But I get it done close enough that, even though I'm battling with it, it's transformed my life and made me so much more effective.
Yes.
Then the third state of completion is what he called automatedly complete. And I've kind of actually mixed in provisionally complete and automatedly complete. So provisionally complete is everything that can be done now has been done now, and everything that can't be done now is scheduled to be done in the future. Automatedly complete is when you have something that repeats and recurs, you've got calendar appointments in your calendar to have that done for everything in your life that repeats, whether it's renewing your car's registration, whether that's going for a checkup at the dentist or getting your teeth cleaned. Like every 3 months, go to the dentist, get your teeth cleaned. It's in the calendar. And that way you design a life that works and things don't fall off. Am I perfect? No. But am I incredibly more effective than I ever dreamed I was possible? Yes. And I think that's what has allowed me to grow, a 7-figure business as a solo entrepreneur, without staff, was just having built systems like that. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but I'll pause there. It might not be interesting to everyone.
It's interesting to everyone because for people who are in the thought leadership game, the holy grail is the 7-figure business that doesn't require staff and can be done on autopilot. So systems are very powerful and very important. Okay, so this distinction lets you learn how to build a 7-figure business. Go deeper into that. What about it has allowed you to set your business up so that it works for you in this fashion?
Okay, I'm glad you asked because I love talking about this. So the first thing is procedures. So one of the things I learned about Werner, he had a procedure for everything, from making tea to cleaning the house. The maid who cleaned his house had a procedure for how to do every single thing in the house. He had millions and millions and millions of dollars of artwork hanging on the walls. It was like an art museum, his apartment in London. And so everything needed to be done just right. And in order to ensure that it was done in the most effective way and the most efficient way, there were procedures for everything. So one of the things he said to me when I started working with him, he's like, Bruce, your job is not being my computer guy. Your job is writing procedures. I was like, writing procedures? I don't want to do that. He's like, if you're going to work here, that's the first thing they teach you. So first thing we learned, day one, how to write a procedure. That took about 3 weeks. Reading the procedure for how to write a procedure. So of course, now in my business, Love at First Fight, I also have a procedure for how to write a procedure. But the idea was you started with procedures first. And then if anything happens to you, ideally you could take somebody off the street and have them follow the procedure and they would get the task complete when it needed to be complete. So anything that couldn't be automated in my business via software, which is most of it now, or AI, there's a procedure for, and my staff are following procedures. And the first thing they do whenever we learn something new, or whenever we get a new piece of software that we've incorporated into our business or something, is we write a procedure for how to use it. And then we train everyone on the procedure. And then they get to use the software. And if anything ever gets changed, the procedure gets updated. And we've probably got about 50 procedures in our business for the various things that we do and the courses that we run and that just keep all the wheels turning. One of my favorite procedures is the tax return procedure at the end of every year because I don't have to do it. Now that it's procedurized, my staff can do it for me. And I don't have to stress about doing the bookkeeping, the accounting, the tax return filing, everything and every little step along the way, who to send an email to, where to submit it, who to call when they're done, who to check with a week afterwards to make sure it was submitted. It's all handled in the procedure. So the end of the year is not a stress fest for me anymore, which is amazing. That was one of the biggest takeaways I took about how to build an automated business where you don't have to be hands-on. Every time you do anything, procedurize it. And the beautiful thing about AI now is that I've now got AI writing my procedures. So we're constantly incorporating new tech stacks into our business because it's an online business. So every time I get a new piece of software or buy a new plugin for our WordPress website or whatever the case may be, I now record myself doing all the things that I need to do on a microphone as I'm doing it, and I talk the AI through, and then I give the audio recording to ChatGPT, which is trained on our how to write a procedure. So as its knowledge base, it has our how to write a procedure document. So it references that, and now it writes the procedures for us. Incredible what the times we're living in right now. I mean, they just blow my mind what's possible. So that was one of the biggest takeaways I got around business. And I think the second biggest takeaway I got was being unstoppable. So, Werner loves these unfuckwithable, unstoppable. And the idea here, the big takeaway for me was that my feelings are not something that should stop me. They're not to be ignored necessarily, but they're also not necessarily to be indulged. They're meant to be released and worked through. And that was in the past, if I was feeling tired, I would go and have a nap and wouldn't get done what I said I was going to get done. Then I'd wake up from my nap feeling guilty, which would zap my energy for the rest of the next day, because I'd be living with the guilt and the shame of not having got the thing done the day before, which would then prevent me from getting it done because I would avoid and procrastinate. I was a chronic procrastinator. And what I took away from working with him was that I was just giving myself permission to buy into my emotions that were not an accurate reflection of who I am in the world. They were just a reflection of the chemistry in my body in that moment, and perhaps more accurately, a reflection of all of the out of integrity that I had created in my life. And that if I got my life in order, those feelings would go away. And it was so true. So whenever I started feeling depressed or anxious or overwhelmed, I started looking at, where is my integrity out in my life? Where have I made a promise that I haven't kept? Where have I said something that I didn't mean? Where have I committed to doing something that I actually didn't want to do? And I would go and fix those things. And suddenly all the aliveness would come back to me in my world. And that's why I did a whole TED talk just on aliveness, because that distinction, it was like waking up from the dead. Suddenly I had power over my emotions. I could release them. I knew where to get to the heart of them. Usually the heart of all my bad feelings was some integrity that was out of place, or some commitment I'd made that I didn't want to keep, or that I hadn't kept and I hadn't communicated about it. And when you get into action, communicate and clean up your integrity, the energy just comes back. And that was life-changing for me. And that allowed me to be far more effective than I think most of my peers are in building my own business, because I wasn't stopped by my emotions. I'd just be like, I'd acknowledge them, go, okay, I'm feeling like crap today. Let's have a look at what's going on. Spend half an hour journaling. Suddenly I'd feel better. I'd take some action, call up the people I needed to call, and suddenly I'd be flooded with aliveness again, and I could continue doing what I wanted to do even better than before. It's amazing.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll put a bookmark in there for now, in case you want to go into other areas like relationships. You're having second thoughts. Okay, maybe we shouldn't get talking about relationships.
This is mind-blowingly cool. Everything you've shared here is mind-blowingly cool.
I'm glad you think so. You're one of the few people in the world, I think, who would actually really appreciate this.
No, this is amazing.
Appreciation for Werner.
Procedures. Yeah, right. Procedures for everything. There are things I have procedures for, but I haven't written them down. Like, I have a procedure for getting up in the morning and getting ready to go to the gym. I've just never written it down. And I got a procedure for it. I have a procedure for my workout at the gym. I have a procedure for preparing my meals and what meals I eat, when, and why. I think Beautiful. I need to procedurize.
So as you scale and grow and you employ more people, Nikki, those are the procedures that you're going to give to other people to run your life for you, so you can do what you do best, which is give your greatest gift. You don't have to run around cooking food and driving yourself around. One of the things I learned from Werner is, like, driving a car is the biggest waste of time. You're literally, unless you're learning something, like he stopped driving. He stopped driving, I don't know, maybe 20 years before he was too old to drive. And he just employed a driver, because he was like, I'm wasting my time sitting in a car getting stuck in traffic. And now he could sit in the back seat and he had his laptop with him and he'd be productive to get stuff done, and he wouldn't be wasting his life away.
Interesting.
And was he a workaholic? Maybe. But I think he absolutely loved what he was doing. He was a man on a mission. And if you're a man on a mission and you want to give your gift to the world, you ain't got time to get stuck in traffic.
Well, that's a good point.
Or make your own tea or cook your own food, unless that's a choice you want to make on the weekends, when it's a joy for you.
I enjoy all of that. I enjoy cooking my own food. I enjoy making my own tea. I enjoy all of that. But it just shows me that there could be procedures for other things, man. Like these things that I have procedures for, and I've never called them that, but that's what they are. I feel free. I fucking feel free. I don't feel like I have to think about it. I don't feel like I have to reinvent it every time I do it. And I think I ought to procedurize our business more, because our business has some weak ass procedures, but not great ones. And procedures will help us take it to where I want to take it to. No, this is great, man. I
believe it will. Yep. It'll help you scale, because then you can hand off the stuff that you do. Like, Nikki, for the longest time, I didn't employ people because I realized that it would take me so long to train them on how I do what I do. And so slowly over time, I started writing procedures for how I do what I do, step by step, one by one. And then when I started taking on employees, I just gave them all the procedures in like a little Google Drive. And I was like, okay, start with how to write a procedure. And then from here, here's your list of procedures you're going to master one by one. And that's going to be your training. It'll take you 6 months. And 6 months from now, you'll be fully trained to be able to basically replace me and do what I do in the business that I don't want to do anymore. It takes a bit of time and it takes some dedication, and you have to think the long game, because in the moment you're like, maybe I don't have an employee right now to hand this off to. What's the point? But unless you start, you're always going to be spinning your wheels, only able to scale so far because you can only do so much. At some point, you're going to have to hand over what you do to others to do the stuff that you're not great at or that is just low value work.
Yeah, everything we do has got to be proceduralized. It's not proceduralized right now. And honestly, we got to start proceduralizing. We got to start thinking about what it's going to take for us to grow. I need to start thinking things through. And this blueprint that you've shared with me on this podcast has done a terrific job of doing that for me so far, Bruce. It's really, really great.
Great. Well, I'll hand all the credit to Werner, but I'm glad it was helpful.
So Bruce, we'll do a relationship podcast the next time I bring you on, and I'll bring you on again soon because I enjoyed this conversation. I'd like to do that. We don't have a ton more time right now, and I think we ought to finish this conversation because it's a good conversation. So, what else did you do on a day-to-day basis in your work with Werner that has transferred over to the rest of your life and your business?
Okay. So one of the big, strangest things about working for Werner was that when we weren't talking with him, we were required to refer to him as the customer. So we wouldn't say Werner needs his tea at 3 p.m. We'd say the customer needs to have his tea at 3 p.m. And he set it up like, when we were talking with him face to face, we wouldn't call him the customer, we'd call him Werner. And, but the idea is that firstly, by calling him the customer, that made us the service provider. So instead of being an employee who was sitting there entitled to a salary and doing the bare minimum just to get by, we were service providers whose job it was to deliver a service to the customer and to please the customer. And it changed, although at the time it was very odd, and I remember thinking how weird it was. Now that I'm older, I look back and I'm like, that is genius. Like, it created a whole mindset of service. And that has really helped me in my own business to remain present to my clientele are my life. The couples that come to me to have their marriages saved, those are the people that I am serving. And it's very easy for me to forget that sometimes because I get so caught up in the busy work of my business, or we're dealing with complaints, or we're dealing with business stuff and all the stuff that goes with running a 7-figure business. I forget that my job is to serve. And when I'm serving, I'm the happiest. When I'm in a space of service, I joyously give, and my life seems to work out better, and I attract better things into my life. And so that was one of my biggest walkaways from everything I've done since then. I've tried to keep this idea or balance this idea of service. I'm not a saint. I'm not saying I'm Mother Teresa. I'm definitely not. But I try and remember that my job is to serve. And if I do that, I'm always going to end up being happy, and I'm going to make friends and have people who love me wherever I go throughout my life. It's been one of the greatest gifts he gave me. My day would involve arriving at work and going straight to my calendar and seeing what was scheduled in my calendar and then checking off all the things. One of the things I had to learn was to set boundaries and say no. I so didn't want to displease Werner that I would, take on stuff thinking that I couldn't say no. And eventually I had a year's worth of work that I'd promised to get complete within 3 months, and I was just burning out. And he sat me down and he looked at my calendar and he said, "What is going on here, Bruce? Like, you can't get this all done. You can't work till midnight every day. You're going to burn out." And so what he said to me is like, Bruce, you need to be honest with me. And when I give you a task, your job is to say, no, I can't do this. Or, yes, I can do it, but if I do it, the impact will be these 3 other tasks that you've given me to have done by Friday will fall by the wayside and won't get done by Friday. Which would you prefer? Lose these 3 tasks or get this one done? And what I learned was I had a choice. It was hard for me to say no to powerful people. And he trained me that I didn't necessarily have to say no. I just had to be honest about the consequences of each action. And so that empowered me to be able to communicate what was going on. When I communicated, he appreciated it way more, and we became much better at working together as a team. And so I drummed that into my team, who I know look up to me as a mentor, as not only as their boss who's responsible for paying their salary, but they also look up to me as a mentor and someone who inspires them. And I know it's easy for them not to want to tell me the truth for fear of displeasing me. So one of the things that I've tried to create in the culture at Love at First Fight is this culture of you will never get into trouble for coming to me and telling me the truth. But if you hide the truth, you're guaranteed to get into trouble. Come to me and tell me the worst thing. And so I, as a leader, when my staff come to me and tell me, Bruce, I screwed up. It's cost the company $15,000. I can't go, what? How could you? What were you thinking? Like, I might be thinking that in my head, but I cannot do that. I've got to go, okay, thank you for telling me. I really appreciate you being honest. Now, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to mitigate the impact? And it's been amazing creating that culture, because now they come to me early on before things are going south. And we catch it way sooner because they're not afraid of me. And there's this culture of, we can come to Bruce and talk about anything. So there's just some off the top of my head. Bearing in mind, this was 2004 to 2006. So this is 20 years ago. And I'm trying to remember what I learned back then.
You've done a great job.
Forgive me if it's not pieced together in a coherent narrative.
You're being modest, man. You've remembered it well and you've explained it well. It's brilliant. I really enjoyed this conversation, Bruce. How do people find out about you, what you do, and what you're all about?
Sure. If anybody wants to learn about what I'm doing with relationships, you can just go to loveatfirstfight.com. And I give away a ton of free stuff on my website. And if you're struggling with your relationship, go there, try some of my free courses, and I'm sure you'll see massive results very, very quickly. That's probably the best place to find me.
We'll make sure we send people that link. It'll be in the show notes. Bruce, we end every episode by asking
Thank you, my brother.
Our guest expert, my pleasure, to share your top 3 pieces of advice. These are your, what we call your expert action steps. Bullet point form.
Okay.
What say you?
All right. So can I go with any topic here? Because off the top of my head, the easiest topic here is relationships.
Absolutely.
That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Okay, my top 3 pieces of advice for relationships are: number 1, connect first, communicate later. The idea here is most people focus on trying to communicate first, and it falls flat when you're disconnected. What's way more important than communication skills or improving your communication is learning how to connect with your mate first, or anybody you're communicating with. That calms their nervous system. It then allows your communication to naturally go well. Second big tip: vulnerability is just honesty. I learned this from Annie Lalla, a friend of mine. She's also a relationship coach.
I know Annie.
And it's a beautiful definition. You know Annie?
I know her very
Annie's
well,
amazing.
man. She used to come hang out with me when my son was born, me and my then wife.
I love Annie. Annie and Evan are some of my favorite people in the world. I don't get to see them
I met
enough.
her. She was single back when I knew her. It was before she got married. She would come and babysit our little son when he was a baby. That's too funny, Annie, man.
Small world, man. We are brothers from another mother.
Yeah.
So what Annie taught me was that vulnerability is not weakness. It's just being honest about where you're at and what you're experiencing and what you're feeling in the moment. And so when she reframed vulnerability as honesty, for someone like me who values integrity and honesty and authenticity, suddenly I was like, oh, I get it now. When somebody asks me how you're doing and I say I'm fine, I'm not being honest and I'm not being vulnerable. And it doesn't allow any conversation to flow. And I'm basically putting a wall up saying, don't talk to me. So one of the biggest tools we teach in our courses at Love at First Fight is how to communicate vulnerably, how to talk about what's going on inside of you, your internal experience, so your partner can make sense of it and doesn't think you're just crazy, you're acting out the way that you're acting out. They can understand what's going on inside. But most of us men, particularly, are taught that vulnerability is weakness. And on that same line, my third big tip is that the end result we want to aim for is not independence. Independence is not the end of our development. Independence is only the beginning. So most of us, we grow up completely dependent. We're born, we're dependent on our mother to feed us. We're dependent on our parents until we're about 16 to 18 years of age. And then we start developing independence, often earlier. And very often that's where our personal growth stops. However, if you want a successful relationship, you need to learn how to be interdependent. And that is the ability to be independent of another and dependent of them when necessary at the same time, and to be able to flex and flow between having your own life that is independent of your partners or your spouses and having a joint life where you're dependent on each other and you can lean on each other. Because if you're too independent, you will drift apart. If you're too dependent, you'll become enmeshed and you will lose yourself in your relationship. And any great relationship is two people who are both able to be completely independent of each other and completely dependent on each other in a healthy way. And so I'm going to define the difference between healthy dependence and unhealthy dependence. Healthy dependence is the kind of dependence that makes you more resourceful and stronger. Unhealthy dependence is the opposite. It makes you less resourced and weaker. And if your dependence is making you stronger, it's healthy. And most of us were brought up in a culture that didn't even know there was such a thing as healthy dependence. We just learned about codependence, which is actually a misnomer. It's a term from the Alcoholics Anonymous movement. It doesn't actually apply to relationships. And so any kind of dependence suddenly became codependence, particularly for men, avoidant women too. And so that was a huge breakthrough for me, because when couples work together as a team, that's when you can exponentially increase your ability to A, be happy, to get stuff done in the world, to make a difference, to give your gift and support each other. So I'll stop there because I could go all night. But you asked for 3, you got 3.
No, those are awesome, man. Bruce, buddy, you're awesome. We got to have these conversations.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
Way more often. We'll have a pure relationship conversation on the next episode I bring you on.
I'd love that.
Yeah, be good. Listener.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
thanks for inviting me and for being the extraordinary human that you are, making a difference in the world and inspiring people. And I want you to know the difference you make is noticed and felt in the world. And when you're having a funk, don't forget service. We're men of service. And when we focus on getting, that's often when the funks, in my experience, begin. When we put our focus on service, that's when we get realigned with purpose.
There's so much truth in what you just said. Thank you. Listener, Bruce Muzik is the real deal. Go to his website, loveatfirstfight.com. Check out some of his free resources. And if you got someone in your life who could use this message, share this episode with them, or at least share one of the reels we post on social media with Bruce. And how you can help us is give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review, because that helps us with the algorithm and gets the message out to the people that need it the most. And I just want to say this. In a day and age where there's so much craziness going on in the world, understanding that the key to feeling the best version of yourself is to find a way to be honest with you. Unfuckable with is such a great term.
Unfuckwithable.
Unfuckwithable. Okay. Unfuckwithable is such a great term, because what it means is that you've got to develop a level of honesty and integrity with yourself. Because being honest and integrous with self is the source of aliveness. And aliveness is the source of living a life that you love. And that's it.
Amen.
That's a wrap.
Awesome, Nikki. I love you, brother.
Get on, man.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.